Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this deep dive event with Qlife. Today, we are on site at the Qlife to make a live demonstration of the system, and we would like to test for one of the assets as well, CRP. With me today, I have the CEO, Thomas Wartho.
Hello.
Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you, Carl.
And please have some patience in relation to questions because we're going to do a live performance. But as always, you are more than welcome to post your questions and I will forward them to Thomas during the presentation. So with that said, Thomas, please carry on and maybe give a short introduction to all the things you have on the table.
Yes, I will certainly do that. Thank you, Klaus. Thanks for that. And yeah, my name is Thomas Wartho. I'm the CEO of Qlife, and I'm very happy to be able today to give you a little insights into the strategy of Qlife, and more specifically to focus in on one of our use cases, which is the one that we called health practitioners, which consist of small private health clinics that offer services to the general public. It could be dietitians, nutritionists, physiotherapists, chiropractors, etc., etc. And we would like those types of private clinics to start using blood testing in their services towards people. But before I get into all of that, I would very much like to demonstrate the system that we have created, Egoo Health, for you guys, because we thought that could be a really nice way to sort of get an idea of what it actually is that we are doing here at Qlife. And, you know, when you purchase a Qlife or Egoo Health system at Qlife, you get a box like this, and you bring the system home and you have to put it on your local Wi-Fi at home. So you need your code, and most people have that. And once you have it on the Wi-Fi at home, you download the app, we call it Egoo Connect, on your smartphone. And once you've done that, you are capable of operating the system. And that's what we already have done here to make it a little bit simpler.
Thomas, yes. Very shortly.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you,
Sure.
But the topic today is actually systemic low-grade inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And before we start up, maybe we should have a very short introduction to what is it you measure when we talk about systematic low-grade inflammation.
Yeah, so with C-reactive protein, which is our first test that we have launched after COVID, we are measuring either inflammation or infection levels for people. You can say that systemic low-grade inflammation really relates to people that have chronic diseases, because when you have a chronic disease, often you have inflammation in your body. It could be that that inflammation correlates directly with your disease. Like in the case of, for instance, rheumatoid arthritis, CRP is directly correlated to the adjustment of your medication. So that means that if your CRP level is high, maybe your doctor wants to adjust so that you get more of the biological drug. And if it's low, maybe you can get a little bit less. So in that case, it's directly correlated. But in other cases, it's just an indicator of basically how you are doing. If your inflammation level, if you monitor that over a longer period of time and the trend is going up, it means that your disease, your pain is basically going the wrong way. And if the trend is going down, it means that you know, you're doing better. Good. And so that's how we intend to use CRP, our CRP capsule, as an indicator for basically how are you doing.
Yes. Later on, when you actually perform the test and we get the result, will you elaborate for the audience? You know, I know you have different levels. You know, is it acute or is it okay, or yes, do you have a healthy lifestyle? I hope you will get back to that.
Yeah, I will get a little bit into that.
Good.
But before, as I said, I think we would like to demonstrate the system. So once you have put up the system and have it in your home, you need a small finger stick, because we are measuring in a drop of blood. You need to have an Egoo Collect, which is our blood to plasma little device that filtrates blood to plasma. You need a CRP capsule. And then, of course, when you have blood, you need to have a little napkin here to make sure afterwards that you don't get blood everywhere. So let's get started. We start opening the Egoo Collect. You take that out. It looks like this. And you take out the CRP capsule as well. it comes here. And I have this little tray also here to have the capsule in a nice place. You massage your finger a little bit because you need to have a little good blood circulation in the finger to get a good drop of blood. It's important that you deliver the drop of blood directly on the white membrane here, if you can see that. And we basically just need 1 drop of blood. You can deliver 2, but 1 should be enough. So you take the finger tip, and they come in different types of shapes and types. I have one here, which is a medium-sized needle. That's what I need. And you do with the finger stick. It hurts a little bit, of course, but that's the pain you have to suffer to get the data. So you do like this. The first, you can see here, you should not massage too heavily, because then you have the risk of doing hemolysis. Which means that the red blood cells are broken. And so you should just do it very, very slowly and simple, easily. And actually this one here is not so good, so I will start over. I will take it away again and start, because it would be nice to have a good sized drop of blood to deliver. And I can see today I don't have so much blood in me, but here it's coming. And then down. It looks good. Yeah, it looks good. And then down. Can you see the membrane absorbs the blood immediately? Yeah. And that's actually enough. But let's put a little bit more on it. So now it should be enough. And we designed these Egoo collects so that it have indicators for when there is enough blood. And this indicator here next to the inlet should start to get red when it has enough. So it doesn't look like it has enough at this time. So I will put a little more into it. Yes. Here it comes. Yeah. That's it. That should be more than enough. And then it starts to get red. Of course. I will just keep this on my finger. And then you close it like this. And you wait a little bit. Because now we are waiting for the other indicator to show that there's plasma. It works in a way so that there's a small capillary in this device here, and that fills up with the filtrated plasma. And you can compare this little device here to a centrifuge in a hospital, where you are, instead of doing this, you spin down the blood so that it ends up with a nice sample of plasma. So now you can do that in the home, and that's actually something we are extremely proud of, that we are capable of doing. No one else, as far as I understand, in the world is capable of doing that. And you patented all this? Yes, we have patented this little device here. Yes. We have 1 IP on that one. Yeah. And we have 2 IPs on the actual system. Yes. So now you can pull it out. And you can see, if you look up here, this little 5 microliter capillary is filled with plasma. And that's basically what it is. And the reason for measuring in plasma is that most biomarkers should preferably be measured in plasma, because we want to have the same clinical grade quality as in the laboratory, right? Of course. Other systems are measuring in full blood, and that's simply not as good. You also have the issue of hematocrit. Most of us have heard about hematocrit related to cycling. Yeah. If you have a very high hematocrit, you are good at transporting red blood cells around in your body. But for clinical grade biomarker testing, it's not so good, because it spoils the data. So you need to get those red blood cells away and have a clean plasma sample. And that's what we have here. And then you enter it into the capsule. You need to stick it nicely down so that it says click, pull it up, and now it's gone. And then you go into the Egoo collect. You hit the, I don't know if people can see. In front of the camera. Yeah. Maybe you can see here. Yes. And then it basically guides you through the different things that you should do. But essentially, it's ready now. You start this, and then this device calibrates. It always calibrates before every test mechanically. And then the drawer opens. You put in the CRP capsule into the device. Click, and then you scan on the barcode on the capsules, and that means that the device connects to the cloud, and in the cloud it collects the algorithm that we have developed, and then it tells the device exactly which type of assay it is that it should be running.
Okay.
Yes, and then now the device knows. And during the analysis, it connects to the cloud several times. It transfers raw data into the cloud, and the actual data generation or the result is calculated in the cloud, where all the mathematical power lies, and then it's transferred in the end of the analysis to your smartphone. And now you can close, and then basically the CRP test starts. And it takes 10 minutes, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
So
quite easy.
It's quite easy.
Yeah.
Of course, it requires you to do a small finger stick.
Yes.
And you handle a little bit. I can say, generally speaking, that once you've done it a few times, you become really good at it.
Yeah.
So I can recommend, obviously, to do it many times, and then you become an expert. So that's really what it is. And in principle, now we have a CRP capsule, but we could do it with, a lot of different types of biomarkers.
This is of course, your first assay, and
yes, this is our first assay. Of course, we had a COVID PCR capsule that we developed under the pandemic, and we sold a lot of that. And so it is, in principle, it's our second capsule.
Yeah.
But now you can say after the pandemic, we are back to the original business plan of bringing lifestyle biomarkers into the hands of ordinary people like ourselves, or into these private clinics. What we are aiming at.
And why did you choose CRP?
So we think CRP is a really nice overall biomarker to start with.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about CRP is that it's not specific to a disease. It's an overall indicator of inflammation or infections in your body. So it indicates basically whether there is something wrong. It also indicates whether you have an infection. Is it a bacteria infection or virus infection? And after that, it relates to, should you have antibiotics or not? If the CRP number raises, the higher it is, the more relevant it is to get antibiotics. This is something that your doctor will decide. And interestingly, you can say that once the data or the CRP number starts to fall, you can actually go off antibiotics. So it also relates to the term that we call antibiotic stewardness, where people or societies in general are very interested in limiting the use of antibiotics. So with CRP, you can basically start to monitor when you should get off antibiotics. I think that's interesting.
Very interesting. Yes,
good application.
Yeah,
also.
For sure. There's actually a question here from the audience about the whole testing process.
Sure.
Is there anything? Now you use your little finger.
Yes.
Could you use the long finger as well, or it should be the little finger?
You could essentially use any finger.
Okay.
I use the reason for using the little finger here is because it fits nicely to where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
But you could use whatever finger. And in that relation, I can also mention that there are devices now where you can put them on your shoulder.
Yeah, even that. Okay.
Yes, and they collect the blood. And then, and the reason for that is really to avoid, the small stick in your finger, which is a little unpleasant. So if you don't like to get that pain, there are these. We have not sort of developed so that it fits to that, but that's something we could do for the future. Yes.
Well, should we get back to the slides?
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, we take a couple of more slides, and there's some questions coming in here. It goes more on your partner strategy, a little on prices and stuff like that.
Yes.
Do you want to comment on that now, or should we take it when you present the slides?
Let me get back to that.
Yeah.
Those are very relevant questions, and I will get a little bit back to that, or we can take it there. So yes, so basically, in terms of Qlife strategy forward, we developed this system. As everyone can see, it's a very portable little smart system. It's actually a mini laboratory, you can call it. It executes a lot of this different functionalities that a big auto-analyzer in a central laboratory does. We are quite proud of having been able to put all that into this very small little box. It delivers results fast. 10 minutes we think is reasonable for a home test. If you are in the office, GP office, obviously you would like them faster. We can actually do it faster, but speed is often a trade-off with quality. The systems you see there are not as precise as ours, but they do it faster. We could also do that, but we decided that we want to do really high quality, and then it takes a little longer. It has to do with the temperature regulation in the device.
But we still talk 10 minutes.
We talk 10 minutes, which I think is pretty quick.
It's pretty fast. Yeah. The alternative is laboratory test, and that's 0 days.
And that's obviously 0 days.
Yeah.
And we're all used to going to the doctor, and they draw blood from your veins.
Yes.
And they send it off, and then you get data some days later.
Yes. And all this, both the blood test kit and the CRP, we got in these sterilized bags, and you can order them from Egoo Health.
You can actually. So the reason also for showing this today, of course, we also have a little bag thought.
Yeah, of course.
Is that we would like to sell as many systems as possible, and you can go in and order the system in our web shop, and everybody can do that. We have launched the system as what we call a wellness, in the wellness category. So not as a medical product, but essentially. I can say a lot about that, but the point is there's actually no difference. It's the same capsule. It's just a matter of what we are claiming.
Yeah.
So if people understand what C-reactive protein can be used for, they can use it for that, so to speak. Yes, and another important point is what we call expandability. I usually say that because we are measuring in full blood, and plasma, we can measure up to around 80% of all biomarkers in which are relevant, and that goes for protein-based biomarkers, so immunodiagnostics, and DNA or RNA biomarkers, which was, for instance, COVID, SARS-CoV-2, influenza A and B, all those types of biomarkers. Viruses and bacteria are measured at the molecular level, so DNA or RNA. So we can do both, which is also quite unique, that the system is so versatile that it can do both. Yes, then I have this slide here is basically, first of all, to say that in terms of competitors, there are quite few. Of course, there are some, but in terms of what we are trying to achieve, there's basically only Egoo Health, and what you can say is that it's often a trade-off between quality and ease of use, and that's what we're trying to represent with this slide here. If you have high quality, you typically need a professional person involved to operate the device, and it's only approved for that. If you have lower quality, like the famous antigen test that we learned under COVID, you have lower quality, but a layman person can operate it. So what we are trying to do is to have high quality and have a layman person capable of operating it and being approved for that. And the arrow at the lower right-hand corner here is indicating that the last step that Egoo Health need is to basically, get the green stamp, the CE mark for home use self-testing. Then we have high quality and we have ease of use. And that's what we are trying to achieve. We still are working on that. It has taken somewhat longer than we expected, but that's also because the regulation, the certification process has changed at the EU level under basically when we have existed, and that had made it a lot more difficult.
So you refer to these new IVDR rules?
Yes, absolutely, yes. So we are regulated the exact same way as a central laboratory auto-analyzer in the central lab. So exactly the same, and in fact, some of our Egoos are sitting in those central labs.
Okay, yes. Yeah, because there's a question actually about EVDI rules, when do they kick in? So we have the CE marking and we have the IVDI rules.
Yes.
The first step for you is to get the CE mark for your product today.
Yes, so the CE marking really relates to under the new IVDR regulation. And I can generally say that before it was under the IVDD directive, which was actually it's a big change, because in the old days you could self-certify. That means that we could put this product CE marked by ourselves on the market, and then we would be audited once in a while, once a year. But the product was CE marked. That's not possible today. Today we have to send in the complete technical file, and then we have to wait for the notified bodies to approve it. And in practical terms, I can say that the difference now is that we have to use around 15,000 capsules as opposed to around 1,500.
Oh wow!
So basically 10 times more.
That's a big difference.
That's a big difference. So it's quite difficult actually to get it, but I'm hoping we get it in the relatively future.
So in the meantime, just for the audience, I think the test is more or less ready.
Yeah.
So now we would like to hear if Thomas is healthy. He looks very healthy though. And so we just change focus for a moment, and then we will get back to questions.
Yes.
So please, Thomas.
Yeah. So now basically the test is done. 10 minutes is gone. And before we get the result, my CRP level, we would like people to remove the capsules. That's what it also says here, because then you don't forget it. And then you close the device, and then you get the result. And as you can see, my level is very low. It's actually below 1 microgram per ml, which means that I'm quite healthy. I'm happy to hear that. You can see it here. I'll take it a little bit up. Yes, there it is. A little bit down again. That's better, maybe. And the range that we are measuring is between 1 to 200.
Yeah. So
1 is the absolute lowest, and that's why it says below 1. We are delivering obviously quantitative data. So that means we would, if my level was higher, it, for instance, could say 5.4 or 25 or something like that. The higher you get, obviously, the worse it is.
Yeah, of course.
And when we talk about low-grade inflammations, it's typically between 10 to 20, which means you have a certain level of inflammation in your body, but you would not be categorized as being sick.
So if you have been to the gym or been running a marathon, so it's not like you're unhealthy. You just, you just stressed your body.
Yes.
Then you will be in the range of 10 to 20, or?
Yes,
depending, of course.
It's actually very interesting you mentioned that, because sports, and especially high-performance sports, is an area we're a little bit interested in also. And I can say that we worked with the IT company KMD some years ago under the pandemic. We had actually the Ironman in Copenhagen, which KMD owns. We basically got the sponsorship from them. Yeah. And we ran a test on 6 very, very healthy Ironmen. One of them was Christina Svejstrup, who's one of the really, really good international world athletes. And we measured their CRP level over 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. And the interesting thing we saw was that once these Ironmen had performed the Ironman, they actually had very high CRP levels. Actually up to around 30, 35.
Wow.
Which means that they were, after such a tough race, they were clinically ill, which is interesting. And what it can be used for is that what they were really interested to see was, when does the graph level down? When does it level out? Because that indicates when they can start to train again.
Yes.
And for them, it's really important not to get injuries.
Yeah.
So this system can, in a sports context, can be used to tell you when you should exercise and when you should not exercise.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, well, we got the result. So, should we take some questions?
Yes, let's do that.
You described a little about the unit. There's a question about the assays again. Can you test for several indications in the same assay?
We can, as a matter of fact, but there is a limit to how many we can test.
Okay.
We can test 2, max 3.
Yes.
Because the problem is that the sample you enter, every time you need to have enough sample to keep the sensitivity and the specificity of the test. And once you start to have put together many types of biomarkers, you lose that sensitivity.
Okay.
And that means that you are no longer clinical grade. And for us, it's extremely important to be clinical grade, because otherwise, we are not comparable to, to the central lab. And that's what we want to be.
Of course.
There's a really bad example of someone who claimed that they could do maybe, I think she said up to 100 tests, which was the Seonas case. Yeah, I think everybody has heard about it. And the difference there was really that she claimed she could do like 100 tests from a drop of blood, and that's simply not possible.
No.
So that's one of the big differences. There was a lot of other issues, but that was a big one. And that's why, to keep the clinical sensitivity, you can do no more than 1 to 2, maybe max 3 tests in one capsule.
Yeah. You started up with the CRP, and I know you have plans for further assays. Yes. Just to get back to the market, because you don't have the CE mark, this IVD ready yet, and you're working on that. That's a matter of how many assays you actually use, and of course other stuff. And with that said, your focus right now is a different segment. You have a lot of segments within home testing.
That's right.
And this segment you focus on, you can focus on that both in Europe and US?
Yes. No, only Europe.
Only Europe. Okay, yes. Good.
We are very interested in the US market as well, and we will go there. We have a little bit different strategy for the US, but we will talk about that another time.
Yes. So if we look at Europe, what segment are you into now? And,
yeah. So if you go to the next slide,
I can do that. I just change here.
Yes.
This one?
Yes, this one. I'm basically indicating here that the 3 big segments that we are interested in is the first one, which really relates to mega trends in societies, in the healthcare that we see. The first one is what we call at-home hospitalization. There's a big push towards keeping patients at home from the hospital. And we are going to participate trials here in Denmark, where the idea is to keep patients hospitalized, but in their home. And of course, to do that, you need to be able to monitor specific biomarkers. Like, these people are typically quite ill. So here we are talking about infections that are quite high, and it's obviously critical to be able to measure that very precisely. That's an area we are very interested in, but we are not going there before we actually are CE marked approved, because it's very clinical. The next one is the one that we're talking about today, is really the private clinics, where people that are either diagnosed or non-diagnosed, it could be both, they are going to have, to talk to a dietitian or a physiotherapist and get some health interventions. And here, what we would like is that the health practitioner is using our system to basically validate what they are doing. So in other words, we are proposing that when you do when a physiotherapist is doing their treatment, you can validate with a blood biomarker to see if it's actually working, because if it's working, your inflammation level should be decreasing. And that's something you should do over, obviously it's not happening the same day, it's something you should monitor over longer periods of time.
So what is typical there?
6
weeks?
Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks, maybe more. And of course, what we would like is that once the patient gets, a feel for it and wants to have that data point on their treatment, they can do it themselves at the home, in the home. But right now we are focused on these private clinics because we think that can really improve the quality of the offering, so to speak.
And could we talk a little about prices?
Yes, but then if you go a few slides forward, next one, I think. Next one again, sorry. Yes, this one, because I think prices is an interesting issue. We have launched the product and everyone can purchase it, as I said earlier, as a wellness product. And we have 3 pricing models. The one is a simple direct purchase. We are selling it for €795 plus tax. That is obviously a relatively high price point. We hope in 2-3 years to have a production volume that will permit us to lower the price. Our target in long term is really to get down to around 350. A little bit like a watch is costing. But right now, for the people that are willing to pay, €7.95, and then we sell a box of 10 capsules for €200, which is €20 per capsule. So that's the direct purchase. Then we developed a subscription model. We obviously also is interested in having people on subscriptions. Here, the entry point is somewhat lower. You could sign up and you pay $220 to receive the device, and then you sign up for receiving 3 capsules CRP every month for 12 months at a cost of €75 per month, and you have to have at least a subscription of 1 year. Otherwise, we charge you the price. If you cancel, we charge you the difference between $7.95 and $200. But if you keep it longer than 1 year, we don't. So that's sort of the inexpensive way of getting started. And then we have for the health practitioners, the clinics, we have also a subscription that we call B2B subscription, where they also pay $7.95 for the device, and then $375 per month, and receive 20 CRP capsules. Yes. So that's really to use it, and basically they would be reselling and obviously charging a higher price than the 15-20 that as we are here for the capsules. I would imagine they could probably more than double the service for having a CRP test in the clinic.
In that clinic.
So that's our pricing model, and we think it's relatively flexible. And you can get started in a relatively inexpensive way. And again, we encourage that you get these 3 capsules per month, especially if you have an autoimmune disease or chronic disease, or basically once interested in monitoring your health. It's really nice to trend yourself and see if your CRP level is trending up or down.
And when we talk about this healthiness segment, and we talk about Europe, what markets are you focusing on? And could you elaborate a little about the clients or size of those clients you're looking at?
Yes, try to go one down maybe.
This one?
Yes, this one here. We have some numbers on, this is specific numbers on dietitians in all the big markets. We are especially focused on the UK and Ireland right now, because the structures in the UK fits really, really well to having decentralized testing. And there's a lot of so-called health practitioners there that are offering services as an alternative to the professional healthcare system. So that's a very, very good market for us. But generally speaking, in terms of dietitians, there are in Europe 35,000, in the US around 75,000, and Japan 50,000. But if you go to let's try to go to one more slide down.
Back?
Forward.
Forward, yes.
I think one more. Yes, this one here.
Yes.
This one, yeah. Here we are focusing in a little bit on the UK market for dietitians. And if we look at dietitians that are specifically focused on certain chronic diseases, in this case here, inflammatory bowel disease, or also could be Crohn's disease, something related to the gastrointestinal area, where it's always relevant to measure your inflammation level if you have a disease there. These health practitioner, we narrow it in, there's around 700 in the UK alone, which is very, very relevant. Of course, there's a lot more, but these 700 would definitely benefit from being able to offer a CRP test. And if you can calculate a little bit with the numbers, if they use, typically there are 6 to 7 consultations per day in such a clinic. And if you calculate with one out of those 6 to 7 consultation is taking a blood test, you would have around 260 per year per clinic. And then the numbers adds up to, if you calculate with 10% of the 700 per year, after 3, 4, or 5 years, we would be in the millions of revenue from that alone, which is a very specific segment, but a nice one where we could see applicability immediately. And I can also mention in this direction that also going to one of the questions, that we are in the UK, for instance, in process of entering partnerships with distributors that are obviously targeting these clinics. So we are focused on basically rolling out the product and having efficient distribution in local markets. So that's what we are very, very focused on right now.
Of course. Yeah. So if we look at the other side of the equation, so in terms of producing both the hardware and the assays, right now it's early days, but you work with Scanfil today, yeah?
We do Finnish Scanfil, but actually it's in Sweden, and they are a contract manufacturer, and we worked with them for several years to basically get them up to speed to be able to produce. And they can take this into the thousands.
Good.
And the higher the volume, the lower the price.
Of course.
So that's the idea.
Yeah, good. Just see if we have any other questions here.
If you take the next slide, I think I can also mention.
This one?
No, no, go back a few slides. Yeah, this one maybe.
Yes.
I can say that in this relation, we are obviously very focused on CRP. But we are also having a portfolio of other biomarkers that would be a nice complement, both to our health practitioners, but also to people in general for consumer health. And in this case, we are working with vitamin D, which is obviously related to if you get enough vitamin D.
Yes.
A lot of people are concerned about their levels. We have hemoglobin A1C, which is the diagnosis for type 2 diabetes, a very clinical biomarker that tells you exactly where you are. If you are pre-diabetes, you should definitely avoid, to get into a type 2. And to do that, you really need the data point that tells you how close you are, because you don't want to get over that barrier. And what we see is that people do not have that data, and typically they think they are doing better than they actually are.
Yeah, of course.
So it's interesting to get that data and try to avoid to cross the barrier.
Yeah.
Lipids, all your cholesterols, everybody knows that it's important to monitor. So we will come out with biomarkers that supplement or complement CRP and basically create a bigger market that we can address.
Of course. Yeah, you both have more assays and you can address more markets.
Yeah, it's very important for us. Obviously, we are still an early stage company, but it's very important for us to increase the portfolio
of
biomarker tests. Also because then it becomes more and more relevant for more and more people.
Do you need, just to get back to regulation, do you need IVDR on every single assay?
Yes.
Or that's the way it works?
Yeah, that's the problem, And
yeah, of course.
That's why we are seeking very actively. We are working towards what we call strategics, so big partnerships that are willing to finance our regulatory pathway.
Of course.
It has proven to be basically too expensive for us to carry all the regulatory. So we are going to enter partnerships, both, as I mentioned before, local partnerships where it's more about distribution into specific markets, but also big partnerships with pharmaceuticals or in vitro diagnostic companies that can bring the product into the settings, the very clinical settings that I was talking about before, and where there is a big interest in, making sure that we can, keep people safe at home, but still monitor, their relevant biomarkers and keep them healthy. Also, another interesting field that we are talking to pharma companies about is what's called safety, because when you are adjusting therapeutic drugs on a person, it's very important to monitor, the big organs, liver, kidney, in order to avoid having what's called adverse events, so that something bad happens. And that's an area which we see a lot of interest from pharma.
Interesting.
Yeah, because then you can avoid that people get really, seriously ill.
Yeah.
From the treatment.
Let's see. There's a couple of questions coming in here. Yeah. So if you try to use the copy machine business model for a low equipment price, but make the money on the capsules,
yes.
What are the current gross margin of a capsule, and how should we look at the margin potential generally?
Yes,
it's a good question.
It's a good question. I mean, so it is the typical razor blade model, and this capsule here, as people can see, it consists of plastics and reagents. So it can get very cheap. And that was not coincidental. We designed it so that it can get very cheap. Right now, we have a cost price on around, I think, €3.5 per test. We sell it 20. But in the long term, it should get well below €1 per test.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And even further. So it can get cheap. The device, it's a little bit different. It is a mechanical device, and we are not making a whole lot of profit on it at $7.95 today. I think we have a cost around $500-600. But in the longer term, as we increase volumes, we need to get it down in the cost to around €100-200.
Yeah.
And then we can also start to make a profit on that one. Yeah.
Is there any more questions out there? Please post them. There's a question a little off the side, but there's one asking about the item dispute. I know it's a different setup today, but is there anything new?
There is actually nothing new in the sense that the dispute is going on. I can comment on it that it's going on in Finland, and there will be no decision before around April, May of next year. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's gonna be long. We obviously think that we have a good case because there was a minimum quantity that we basically have a contract on. We purchased a lot of reagents related to the COVID from them, and that's their counterclaim. Those are the claims against each other, and we will see who wins.
Yeah, it went into arbitration court, and that's actually the timeline.
Yeah, we just simply agree on that, which I think, generally speaking, is really too bad. But sometimes that's life.
That's life, yeah. So if there's not any more questions, I would like to finish today's event. It's been very interesting to see the whole thing working.
Yes.
The Egoo Health platform, and really nice to visit you, Thomas.
Thank you, Klaus.
So with that said, thanks a lot, and enjoy your day.
Thank you, Klaus.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Bye-bye.